Throughout the entirety of Donald Trump's candidacy, we talked about how unfit he was to hold the office he has now won. Again, not just because of his attacks on our democracy, not only because of the failures of his first term, but because of his cognitive decline, which became clearer and clearer every day on the campaign trail. And it is abundantly clear now because in the few and far between press conferences and speaking engagements Donald Trump has done since the election, he's really just starting to show how more and more every single day he's really losing his grip. Not that he ever really had it, but he specifically did when asked a question at a press conference today that really set him off and really just had him lose all control. And we are going to get into that meltdown. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really means the world to me. Now, before we get into the question Donald Trump was asked by a reporter, I want to start with a bit of a rambling from the beginning of this press conference right here.
Like out of nowhere came the China virus. Out of nowhere came other things we don't want to have. You know, when I left, we had no wars. We had no problems. The Middle East was good. We did the Abraham Accords. We did things that nobody thought were even possible. But think of it, 4 years ago, we had no wars. You didn't have Russia going into Ukraine. They wouldn't have done it. They weren't even thinking about it. When they saw what happened in Afghanistan, I think they gave them an idea. But they wouldn't have done it. They would have never gone. President Putin would have never gone in. And now you look at all those people are dead. All those cities are destroyed. You know, it's nice to say they want their land back, but the cities are largely destroyed. They've left Kiev because probably maybe they want to use it or occupy it, but they haven't done it. They've done a lot of damage, but relatively compared to the other cities, very little. But
all it is anger and vengeance and woe is me and complaints from Donald Trump. It's what we talked about during the campaign. And I don't like the I told you so, and certainly we told you so of it all. But yeah, this is Donald Trump's focus. And during this press conference, he even said that he plans to go after and sue Ann Seltzer, the pollster in Iowa who predicted Kamala Harris would win the state. Donald Trump is such a sore loser. He is so vengeful and angry that he just can't focus. And that became incredibly clear when he started being asked questions by the reporters at this press conference, specifically this right here.
Well, I'm not going to comment on the Putin question, but I will comment on Bibi. We had a very good talk. We discussed what is going to happen, and I'll be very available on January 20th, and we'll see. As you know, I gave warning that if these hostages aren't back home by that date, all hell's going to break out, and very strong.
So Trump was asked a lot of questions about a lot of his friends during this press conference, and the next one we're going to look at might be the worst of them all. But we have seen Trump say this for months now after the reporting by Bob Woodward that Donald Trump had talked to Vladimir Putin more than 7 times since he left office, and now he doesn't want to comment on any conversations they may or may not have had, which I think we all really know what that means. But Donald Trump was also asked a question about another questionable person that he is close to, in RFK Jr. He was asked a series of questions that should be of such concern to us that I want to check them all out in a row.
Can I ask, just clearly, do you believe there's a connection between vaccines and autism? Do you believe there's a link?
Well, I don't look. Right now, you have some very brilliant people looking at it. I had dinner the other night with the head of Pfizer, the head of Eli Lilly, and RFK, as you know, and Oz. And we had, and other people within the administration that are involved in the medical. And we're looking to find out, you know, if you look at autism.
Can I follow up on Robert Kennedy? He's on the Hill today. He's meeting with senators. What do you say to people who are worried that his views on vaccines will translate into policies that will make their kids less safe?
No, I think he's going to be much less radical than you would think. I think he's got a very open mind, or I wouldn't have put him there. He's going to be very much less radical. But there are problems. I mean, we don't do as well as a lot of other nations, and those nations use nothing. And we're going to find out what those problems are. And another thing.
Thanks, President Trump. What about the polio vaccine?
Well, I'm a big believer in it, and I think everything should be looked at, but I'm a big believer in the polio vaccine, the Salk vaccine.
Do you think schools should mandate vaccines? Do you think schools should mandate vaccines?
I don't like mandates. I'm not a big mandate person. So, I was against mandates. Mostly Democrat governors did the mandates, and they did a very poor thing. It was, in retrospect, they made a big mistake having to do with the education of children. They lost like a year, 2 years of their lives. The mandate was a bad thing. I was against the mandate.
So is that something you'd want to?
It's very difficult to say which of Donald Trump's cabinet nominees is the most dangerous or is the most worrisome, Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, or RFK Jr. But certainly the legitimacy that has been brought to RFK Jr.'s anti-vax rhetoric and really his anti-science agenda might be the most concerning to me because it's that long-term damage. I am incredibly worried about what would happen to our intelligence relationships if Tulsi Gabbard were to be confirmed. And Pete Hegseth is clearly just a mess in his personal and professional life. So to think that that person would be heading up the biggest organization in the world and the U.S. military terrifies me. But the long-lasting damage that has already been done from RFK Jr. is really frightening. That people are starting to accept these lies that he's pushing about vaccines. And of course, Donald Trump doesn't care. He's willing to go along with it. And what really, really scares me is that RFK obviously is so close to him. He has his ear. And we know all that you need to do to win Donald Trump and get him to push whatever agenda you want is to flatter him, is to say nice things. Oh, Donald, you're doing such a great job talking about the vaccines. And oh, you're such a smart point you made. And so that's what really scares me, is that Trump will continue to use his power as president and the prestige that comes with the office to push these conspiracies. And like I said, RFK Jr. certainly a terrifying candidate for a cabinet position, but really they all are. And that is why we need to see more pushback, which unfortunately we haven't. And Donald Trump is even mad at the small amount of pushback that he's gotten on someone like Pete Hegseth.
And Pete Hegseth gave up a lot, because he was going big places in Fox, big places, a lot of money. And he didn't even hesitate. When I said, do you want to do this? He said, absolutely. I said, if it doesn't work out, you'll never have the opportunity that you have right now in terms of the world of entertainment or business, whatever you want to call it. You'll never have that opportunity again. In fact, it could be just the opposite, because it's nasty out there. He said, I don't care. I have to do it for my country. He gave up a tremendous amount. If this didn't work, it would be a tragedy. But that's what he loves. He loves the military. I never talked to him about anything else. He'd talk about the military. He'd come to see me.
I don't know what Donald Trump thinks Pete Hegseth was doing at Fox. He wasn't hosting the nightly news. He wasn't in a primetime spot. He was a weekend anchor, Donald, like in the morning on Fox and Friends. He was just hanging out. Pete Hegseth has been such a disastrous mess in his professional life that he's been booted out of organizations and gotten in trouble at work constantly. And now we want to put this guy in charge of the U.S. military? I don't know what big things and big money Pete was going to get into, but it can't be as big as the job that he is potentially about to take on, which I don't think anyone in history has been less qualified for a cabinet position than Pete Hegseth is. And I know that some conservatives will say, well, he's a veteran, that qualifies. That's not what it's about. I'm sure there are thousands, if not tens of thousands of veterans who are much more qualified than Pete Hegseth, who would tell you that they don't know how to run the U.S. military, the entirety of that organization. And considering that Pete Hegseth likes to, put a couple of back on the job, I think that makes it a little bit more difficult. But that's never stopped Donald Trump, someone's personal failings, as we can see when he was asked about Eric Adams right here.
You're pardoning Eric Adams?
Yeah, I would. Yeah. I think that he was treated pretty unfairly. Now, I haven't seen the gravity of it all, but it seems, like being upgraded in an airplane many years ago. I know probably everybody here has been upgraded. They see you're all stars, and they say, I want to upgrade that person from NBC. I'm going to upgrade him. And that would mean you'll spend the rest of your life in prison. I don't know. Somehow, I'd have to see it because I don't know the facts. I think he was treated. It's very interesting. When he essentially went against what was happening with the migrants coming in, and, he made some pretty strong statements like, this is not sustainable. I said, you know what? He'll be indicted soon. And I said it not as a prediction, a little bit lightheartedly, but I said it. I said, he's going to be indicted. And a few months later, he got indicted.
This is the really scary thing about the Trump presidency, and we're going to try to talk about it on this show as much as we can. And it's that we're already seeing business leaders, the corporate media, and even some Democrats, which I don't even think you can accurately apply that term to Eric Adams anymore, bend the knee to Donald Trump because they know they can get favors out of him for praise. That's what Eric Adams has been doing. He was railing against the Biden administration, coming out against Kamala Harris because he knew that if Donald Trump was elected, he could probably get him to pardon him. And that's what we're going to see from a lot of elected officials or those in power and business, is that they know that they can skate by on corruption as long as they can curry favor with Donald Trump. So it's not just going to be inside the administration, but the people on the orbit, on the outside, who are using Donald Trump and how easy it is to win him over, as we've seen with dictators who are trying to get off. And we have to call that out. And we're going to every single day on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.